Hi everyone. So in this video we are going to understand how to introduce yourself in the IELTS examination. So before we begin with how you need to introduce yourself, let's understand why this is important in the first place. So when we understand about introduction, it's going to be the very first interaction which you're going to have with the examiner. Also, it's going to set up the first impression. So, why not bring the best game to the table? Now, as a student, it also gives you a lot of confidence when you start your test in a confident manner. So, whenever you're delivering a good introduction, it gives you confidence and it maintains a momentum throughout your test. Now, it will also allow the examiner to understand you completely and get the initial thoughts by understanding the way you introduce yourself. Genuinely, when you give a good first impression, the listener or the examiner in this case is going to have certain expectations upon what it's going to come further. Lastly, it's a question which is definitely going to be there, so why not practice a lot and deliver the best introduction possible? So now let's understand how you need to introduce yourself and when is the right time to do that. Now when I talk to different students and I tell them about the speaking module, they have a common doubt that how does the test starts? Do you have to greet the examiner? Do the examiner greets you? How is it going to be? So I'll tell you what happens right in the beginning. There are going to be three mandatory questions which you have to answer. The first one is, may I know your full name? So the examiner is going to ask your full name and then how can I address you? So here you have to give your first name so that the examiner can call you by that name. And finally, can I have a look at your passport ID? So the examiner is going to ask you to share your passport ID. He or she will check it and give it right back to you. Now, there are some points which you have to take care of while answering these three mandatory questions. Now, the first point is that you should mention the complete name and the exact name which is present on your passport ID. Do not give any nickname or any other name which people call you by. Again, keep your answers short here. You don't have to over explain or over elaborate your answers. Keep them to the point. I'll give you a sample. For instance, may I know your full name? So you can say, hi, my name is Yakshi Dhamija. Then how can I address you? You can call me by my first name, Yakshi. Then can I have a look at your passport? Sure, here it is. That's it. Keep it short, simple, and precise. Once we are done with these three mandatory questions, then we have to introduce ourselves. So here the examiner is going to ask you the question, and the question can be in different forms. It can be, can you tell me something about yourself? Or can you introduce yourself? Or may I know something about you? So these are the different ways in which the introduction question can be there. Now let's understand how to introduce yourself. So I have a framework here which is definitely going to help you a lot. So here we start with talking about something related to our work or study. Then we talk about the city where we live, and then we discuss one or two of our hobbies. Now, definitely, if you are a working professional, then you can start by talking about your work, that I'm currently working as so and so at so and so company. If you want to talk about your experience, that I have 3 years of experience, 5 years, you can mention that as well. Then you have to mention your city. Now, when you do that, just talk about your city shortly, don't over elaborate. And finally, talk about one or two of your hobbies, because this will also bring the personal touch in your introduction. Again, if you are a student, talk about the course you are currently studying, talk about the university or the school from which you are studying this course, and you can even talk about the subjects which are present in your course. So I have a sample introduction here which will give you an idea on how to create your introduction. So let's give it a read. So I'm working as a content writer in a multinational corporation and I'm a published author. I live in Gurgaon. It's a city well known for its infrastructure and corporate culture. In my spare time, I love to read books and write poetry. So you can see that we have kept the length pretty short, around 2 to 3 sentences, because that's the length which we have to take care of in part 1. Our answers shouldn't be more than 3 sentences. So that's how you can craft your introduction. Before we wind up, there are a few points which I want you to take care of. Now, keep the introduction self centered. Do not talk about your family members or siblings, what your mom does or dad does. That's strictly not required here. Keep the introduction self centered. Talk about yourself, your work, your study, your hobbies. Then keep it short, keep it around 2 to 3 sentences, because that's the length which we have to follow in part 1. Do not go overboard with the length here, because the examiner might cut you off in between if your answers are extremely long, and we don't want that. Then, no need to repeat your name in the introduction, as it has already been discussed during the mandatory questions, remember? So, here you don't have to say your name again. Now, do not over elaborate any point, whether it's your work, it's your city, or it's your hobbies. Keep it short, keep it simple, and keep it to the point. A plus point which I'll share with you, that practice this over and over again, because this is something which is in your control. This question is definitely going to be there. So why not practice it again and again, so that you deliver it perfectly. So that's all. That's what we learned today. I hope it was helpful. See you next time.